Kenneth Bromley was once dubbed the half-ton dad because of his shocking weight of 122 pounds. After receiving the help he desperately needed, he shed so much excess weight that he regained the ability to disappear in a crowd. Kenneth Bromley was born on 25 August 1968 in Texas, USA. Growing up, he was an average-built teenager and was even considered a promising athlete with a bright future ahead. Amongst his many talents were the skills to play American football, baseball, and basketball. Unfortunately, he developed an obsession with food in his late teens. At about the age of 19, he most probably never thought of his eating habits as obsessive and thought that he was still in control of his life. But soon, food started controlling him. Relocation can be a difficult, life-changing event for a teenager to process. Being accepted and belonging is one of the core needs of teenagers. And that's what Kenny started to miss after a move from Texas to California. There he fell in with various street gangs and dropped out of all the sports he previously did, something that most probably had so far helped him contain his rapid weight gain. Being part of the cool kids resulted in a life where fast food became the norm. A good nutritional breakfast was substituted for chili cheese fries. The gang would hang out together over lunch, and Kenneth would gulp down 3 hamburgers and 2 liters of soda in a single sitting. As the abuse of alcohol crept in, he started getting through a case of malt per day. The empty calories of beer boosted Kenny's weight gain, but at the time he didn't know how to break out of this cycle of overeating. Soon enough, this teenage boy found himself having to buy bigger trousers every 2 weeks. Twice a month, he had to empty and refill his whole closet to accommodate his growing body. And yet, despite this inconvenience, he could simply not stop eating. Still, he managed to find a woman who loved him for who he was, and thanks to her, Kenny became a father. Unfortunately, he was not a very involved parent because his body did not allow him to chase his kids around, play with them in the backyard, or even take them to school. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and when Kenny saw a photo of himself in the car with one of his children, he was shocked to silence. It was clear to him that his life was spiraling out of control and that his addiction to food made him a prisoner in his own body. However, he still couldn't find the strength to ask for professional help. His mobility was steadily decreasing, and his days became filled with watching television from his bed while gulping down some food. To put the size of Kenneth Bromley's problem into perspective, one must understand that the average person eats about 30,000 calories in the span of 2 weeks. Kenny had the ability to consume this much food in one day. With his binge eating, he was steadily digging his own grave. The day that his bed broke under the strain of his enormous weight, Kenny knew that he desperately needed some help. This turning point came in 2018. Getting to Kenny in order to provide the much-needed help was no small undertaking itself. By now, he had been stuck to his bed for 15 years. It took a team of resilient firefighters to rescue him from his apartment. What the rescuers found that day was truly appalling. The apartment carried the foul stench of a man who hadn't had a bath in 4 years. Some described the smell as that of baby diapers not being disposed of for a long time. Sadly, they also found Kenny lying on the floor, as the reinforced bed he had bought could no longer support his weight. If it wasn't for the rescuers' sense of compassion, Kenny might have died there in bed. This huge man barely fitted into the minivan that took him to the hospital. In fact, he could not fit through the doors of his house, so the firefighters had to break down a wall to get him out. It took a team of very strong men to carry Kenny on a stretcher to a place of hope. The Renaissance Hospital in Houston, Texas, would become his home for the next year of his uncertain life. Who was to blame for the condition of pure neglect he had fallen into? It was almost impossible for anyone to properly take care of a person of his size, let alone maintain some level of personal hygiene. The focus had to shift from blaming anybody to getting Kenny rehabilitated in terms of both eating habits and lifestyle, and helping him to achieve a healthy weight. If the doctors failed to come up with a quick but effective solution, Kenny might die prematurely. The hospital also had the daunting task of keeping him clean, while he could not do it for himself. He was completely immobile. His body was riddled with bed sores that had to be kept free from urine and excrement. It was a huge undertaking to keep his bed and linen clean, but more importantly, to keep his spirits up and provide some hope for the future. Looking after this huge man was indeed a deed of love. Kenny had to lose a tremendous amount of weight in order to qualify for gastric bypass surgery. This meant that his calorie intake had to be cut drastically. Doctors put him on a strict diet of 1,200 calories per day. This must have been a shock to his body that was used to being fed all the time. Although this was an enormous challenge for him, he managed to stick to a strict diet. In a matter of 6 weeks, he was able to drop an impressive 167.5 pounds, or 76 kilograms. This showed doctors that he was willing to put in the work and give his full cooperation to save himself from certain death. The first operation that Kenny was able to undergo was to remove large fat folds from his legs and stomach. This would help his body to start shedding the weight more easily. The procedure helped Kenny to get rid of another 209.4 pounds, or 95 kilograms. The weight loss made an incredible difference, but what was even more amazing for Kenny was that, for the first time in 4 years, his legs could come together. Kenny was working hard in his recovery. 3 months into his hospitalization, he tried to stand on his own. For many morbidly obese people, movement comes with a huge mental blockage because their minds have become accustomed to immobility. Kenny, however, was eager to regain his mobility and the sense of independence. During these 3 months, he was able to lose almost half of his original body weight. He tipped the scales at 531.3 pounds, or 241 kilograms, after losing 487.2 pounds, or 222 kilograms. The chief surgeon responsible for the proposed gastric bypass was finally ready to approve the surgery. Kenny, however, had to spend another 9 months in the hospital in order to get the medical and general care that was required to ensure long-term success and continued weight loss. Without the help of the dedicated hospital staff, he might not have been able to achieve this goal. Finally, after this challenging year in his life, Kenny went home in a wheelchair in 2019. The first goal was to keep him motivated to work on his ability to stand up straight and unaided again. This must have been a huge challenge after 15 years of not being able to do so. His legs had to regain the strength to support his body effectively, but he seemed ready to put in the good work. I bet there are a lot of you who would like to know how Kenny looks these days. Supporters and followers of his incredible weight loss may be surprised to hear that Kenny has chosen to stay out of the public eye. Maybe he simply wanted to put these horrific images of himself to rest and focus on living life again. The man previously known as the half-ton dad regained the ability to disappear into the crowds. We remain hopeful that he has been able to maintain a healthy weight and even shed a few pounds more. For the time being, there is no update available on his whereabouts. However, since he lost half of the weight he had been carrying on his shoulders for years, we can only imagine he looks and feels amazing. What do you think of Kenny's story? Do you know other people who ended up gaining so much weight because of unhealthy habits? Tell us in the comments below. Thank you for watching and see you next time.